You are now tuned in to Urban Exegesis Studios with your host, Dr. Derrick Colon.
Welcome to Exploring the Latin Breakdown, Part 1, The Latin Rhythms in Early Rap, sponsored by Urban Exegesis Studios and presented by Dr. Derrick Colon. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Urban Exegesis Studios. In this opening episode, we are going to take a deeper look at the Latin rhythms that can be found in the early rap records of the late 70s and 80s. It would be impossible to cover all of the records, but we will look at the most important ones. In the documentary The Latin Breakdown, we focused our attention on the Latin flavor that can be found in the traditional b-boy anthems. Today, we will look ahead at the last element and see how that same Latin flavor was infused into the early rap records. Let's begin by giving a definition of what we mean by Latin rhythms. When we speak about Latin rhythms, we are speaking about the African-Caribbean connection that formed and shaped the sonic sounds such as rumba, guaguancó, bomba, plena, salsa, and merengue. Keep this in mind. We are not speaking about the Romance languages when we refer to Latin in this context. At the same time, it is important to understand that when we use the term Latin and their countries of origin, we are speaking about places like Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Dominican Republic. So with that out of the way, let's begin. We start with the historical backdrop of the conga drum with our good friend, Silos Congas.
If he's specifically speaking about the conga drum, the timbales, and bongo, even though all drumming stem from Africa, because it's the idea of using wood, trunks, and skin, but the drumming in Africa are more like ngoma drums, right? So the variation happened in Cuba and the Caribbean. The drums in the Caribbean are different than the drums in Africa. The conga drums, because named after the Congo, because the beats are Congolese beats, like the cha-cha and guaguancó, really come from the Congo. There was a migration from the Congo, Gabon, Congo, and Nigeria.
The foundation of the b-boy anthems are twofold. The Latin percussive instruments such as the conga, the bongo, the timbale, and the cowbell, and the funk sound of the drum kit. The first example that we want to give is the first rap record that debuted in 1979 called Rapper's Delight. The opening segment of that record has a cowbell and a conga rhythm that is reminiscent of the same cadence that can be heard in Latin percussive go-offs. The inspiration for that opening is said to have come from a song called Here Comes That Sound Again by Love Deluxe. Let's listen.
Here comes that sound. There comes that sound. Again and again, again and again, again and again. Here comes that sound. Here comes that sound. Again and again, again and again, again and again. Here comes that sound. Here comes that sound. Again and again, again and again, again and again. Here comes that sound. Here comes that sound. Again and again.
This was a disco song in 1979, the same year. It also contained the Latin flavor with the disco beat. The one sound that seems to be consistent between the opening and Rapper's Delight is the bass line, which might actually be a piano. Now let's listen to the opening of Rapper's Delight. It seems clear that the rhythm that is being played has a connection to a Latin percussive go-off. Yet, the rest of the song is Good Times by Chic. What would be the reason to open the song with this Latin percussive intro? Once again, the inspiration is said to have come from the song Here Comes That Sound Again. That song is laced with a Latin feel as well. So there is no denying the Latin flavor in the opening of the first rap record called Rapper's Delight. The second example is the first rap record on the Enjoy label called Rapping and Rocking the House by the Funky 4+1 More. The producer of this song and many of the songs on the Enjoy label was Pumpkin, who was a Panamanian and a Costa Rican. Next, we're going to look at Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five and their song Super Rapping.
It was a party night, everybody was breaking, the highs was screaming and the bass was shaking, and it won't be long till everybody knowing that Flash was on the beatbox going, that Flash was on the beatbox going, that Flash was on the beatbox going, and sha-na-na.
In this early rap record, you can hear the sound of the conga drums. It would seem that this was done to pay homage to the original sounds of the b-boy anthems that were heavily laced with Latin percussive instruments. As we transition from super rapping, we go into the song called We Rap More Mellow. Both of these songs came out in the year 1979, and this particular song has even more pronounced Latin rhythms than super rapping. Needless to say, this track featured a heavy Latin percussive rhythm. The next song that is of great importance is the seminal work by Spoonie G called Love Rap. In this record, we hear the conga player by the name of Pucci Costello playing the congas. It's not clear if Pucci is of Latin descent, but that is not really important. The important thing is the fact that the Latin cadence is ever present on this record.
From the south to the west, to the east, to the north. Come on, Spoonie G, and go off, and go off. Yes, y'all. A freak, y'all. To the beat, y'all. It's so unique, y'all.
The next record that takes us back to the essence of the original b-boy break is Sugar Hill Groove by the Sugar Hill Gang.
Well, he's on the drums and he can't stay, and he goes by the name of Tito Puente.
From salsa to hip-hop, the famous timbalero Tito Puente was called in to play on this particular track. In the same vein, Curtis Blow made a record called The Breaks, where he also featured a salsa timbale player named Jimmy Delgado. The breakdown was an ode to the original b-boys and the anthems that they rocked to.
Well, these are the breaks. Break it up, break it up, break it up.
The final song that we want to look at is called The Disco Dream by the Mean Machine. This was a remake of the Grace Jones song called Pull Up to My Bumper. The remake was laced with Latin percussion flavor and even the first Spanish rap on vinyl.
Hey baby, you want to fool around? I want you to be my woman.
Party people, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Party people, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready?
In this first episode, we looked at the Latin rhythms that were prevalent in the early rap records of the late 70s and early 80s, from 79 to 82 to be exact. We also gave a more concise definition of the term Latin and how it is being used in this context. Let's remember that when we are referring to Latin people, we are speaking of the African-Caribbean diaspora that consists of Cubans, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, and Panamanians. And we are not speaking about those that would be associated with the Latin Romance languages such as Spaniards. This is not to suggest that all of the musicians were of Latino descent, because they weren't. We are simply speaking of the influence that the Latin flavor brought to the early rap records. Thank you for watching, and please consider subscribing to the channel as well as becoming a channel member for exclusive content. Grace and peace, and stay tuned for part 2.